USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, December 13th, 2023. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. In May of 2021, when Ben Barr was hired at Maine, there was no doubt that it would take a year or two to turn things around, but there was also no doubt that there would be a big turnaround.
And joining us now on USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of the Maine Black Bears, that's Ben Barr. Ben, very good start to this season for your team. 4 straight wins at this point coming into today. What do you like at this point? Obviously, there's a lot to like, but what are some of the things you're seeing from this team that are certainly stand out?
They're self-driven, which is really nice. The teams that have had success that I've been around at other schools have all kind of had that, where you're not poking and prodding guys to work hard. And that's, and we started to get to that point towards the end of last year. And I think that's carried on through the start of the year here. And that's a credit to the leaders on our team, David Brazil, Lyndon Breen, and Ben Poisson, Nolan Renwick, Donovan Gould, Victor. These guys that have been here for the whole time our staff has been here. And, so I think that's the one thing that's really been for us is like, we really haven't had a lot of bad practices or bad efforts in a game. No, we haven't obviously won every game, but like it hasn't been because the guys didn't work hard. And that's a nice feeling to have, as a coach, that that you're going to get a good effort for the most part. And then you let the cards fall where they may,
We're going to get to a couple of great freshmen you have on your team, but you just threw a few names out there, and guys like Lyndon Breen and Donovan Gould, Ben Poisson. These are some pretty high-end players, probably had opportunities to maybe not be back in the lineup for Maine this year. They chose to stay. And as seniors and a grad student for Poisson, these are guys that are really having some impact, not just as leaders, but on the score sheet as well. How nice is it to have a team that seemed dedicated to coming back?
It's really nice. It speaks to the character of those players and those people. And it also speaks to the connection that they have with this place. And that goes way before any of us were here. What happens here when, and it's always been like this going back to the Sean Walsh years, but they have a connection with the people that have been watching them every day. It's like 5,000 people that all know each other every time there's a game up here. And it really is unique to anywhere that I've been. And I've been at quite a few schools. I'm sure there are other programs where it's similar to that, but it's a hard thing to find. And I think that really speaks to the passion for what happens up here. And I think they knew that we had a chance to be better this year. And that's, the fact that they wanted to be a part of that and, is pretty cool for sure.
There are so many high-end freshmen in Hockey East this year that maybe guys like Josh Nadeau and Bradley Nadeau maybe got lost in the big pile of unbelievable talented freshmen, but not lost in your lineup, leading your team in scoring. Each one of them, 10 goals, 22 points for Josh, 21 for Bradley. Tell me about these brothers and what it's been like to coach such talented players.
Yeah, it's really unique. I've coached brothers before at other places that, but when you have two of them that are, dynamic, and then you put them together, and they've been, even though they're obviously not twins, but they've played a lot together over the years in whether youth hockey or in Penticton for a couple of years. We get credit for the score at the end of the game on the scoreboard as coaches, but it'd be a lie to say that we have anything to do with anything that those two guys and Lyndon Breen do together on the ice. They just, some of the stuff they do is just is really incredible. And But I think that what makes them really, really, really special is how hard they work. They're on the ice all the time. They never want to come off the ice. They practice in practice hard games. It's like a game every day they're on the ice. And obviously they're skilled and talented and really good hockey players, but it all starts with the kind of people they are. And obviously Lyndon in the middle of those guys has been really good as well. But they do some things together. Individually, they're very good, but then you put them together and it's pretty special.
You started to touch upon it when I asked you about the upperclassmen, but obviously Orono is a pretty special place with a very deep tradition going back to the 80s and 90s and what Sean Walsh accomplished there. I remember as a student the unbelievable crowds that teams would face and how difficult it was to play up there. But I also remember, as a broadcaster going up there and seeing 2,300 in Alphon, it was just so different. It seems to be back, and you can dispel the rumor. I've heard the rumor that you're sold out for the rest of the season. I see the students still hanging over the goaltender from the balcony in Alphon. Just what's it like to see that building come back to life after some down years in that program?
Yeah, it's I don't know if that rumor is true or not. I couldn't tell you, so I have to go after the ticket office. But it's I think we've had like 4 or 5 sellouts in a row, which is just it's hard to describe. But when you walk out there for the games, it's a whole different feeling, and you just can't find that many places in hockey in general, let alone college hockey. It's just the people are so connected to the community, is so connected to it. And they, it's I think it's the social gathering part of the state, especially the northern part of the state where we are. And, it's just, it's hard to describe, but how, humbling it is when you walk out there and and our players feel it. The other team feels it. It's just it's an amazing place to play, and it's an amazing place to coach. And we have to make sure that we keep fostering that connection with, and that starts with us taking care of business on the ice and putting a good product out there. But it's through thick and thin. I mean, that goes back decades, and even the first couple of years where we were fighting it a little bit. Up here, like the support was still there. It wasn't like it has been this year, but towards the end of last year, you could see they could feel it again, and it's a truly special place to be.
Ben, when we started out, you mentioned about the players being self-driven, and it got me thinking back a little bit following your interviews and some of the press clippings in your first season where you were emphasizing how the team really needed to work hard. And I think you said something like playing like it's your last game. How has it been to develop that culture and kind of instill that over these past 2.5 seasons and get to where you are now?
I mean, for me, I've been super fortunate as an assistant to see that happen at a few schools that, so, that was, having that experience was, really invaluable to me. And then, knowing how important getting the right people in, and that's not just the players, that's also the staff. Jason Forte, Alfie Michaud, Eric Soltis, Nick Fonzie, Cody Fischel, our strength and conditioning coach, like those people. And I can say this because I was a longtime assistant, are more important than I am. And, as a head coach, you get a lot of the credit or the blame for the things that happen, and rightly so. But those are the people that are doing things all day, every day, watching the video, doing the extra skill sessions. I've been in those shoes. And so having the right people in the locker room, as far as the players and their work ethic, that takes time. I think we're finally pretty close to that. And then having the right staff and letting them do their thing. They're all very competent people. more competent than me in a lot of areas. Obviously, Alfie does a great job with our goalies and our penalty kill. Jason has our power play, and he's, our player development coach. He's awesome, and Soltz is on the road, and so those people are, just vital to what we do, and especially up here where we are, we're not going to be the everything shiny recruiting powerhouse that, you see some of the schools that have all the, a lot of resources, or, in big cities or whatever. We have to prove that we can make our players, better every day and win championships. And if we do that, that's why players will come to the University of Maine, and having the right people, not just the players, but the staff is really, really important to that.
More with Maine head coach Ben Barr in a moment. We're back with Maine head coach Ben Barr. Now, I wanted to ask you about recruiting. In your days and as assistant, you developed a reputation as being a very good recruiter, and now you're working with a staff doing the recruiting and scouting. You mentioned recruiting to Maine as opposed to some of the shinier teams in your league. What kind of extra effort, what kind of extra packaging, for lack of a better term, do you have to put together to really sell the quality of your program to a potential recruit?
I don't think my thoughts on that stuff kind of changed, especially during COVID, where, for that whole year, you couldn't really, you couldn't go on the road, right? So we were playing, everyone was still kind of in their own bubble or whatever. And we were around our players. And that was the year we won the national championship at UMass. In recruiting, in my opinion, in recruiting, the most important piece of it is that the players know that they're getting better and they can win. I mean, that's all the rest of it. It's nice to have shiny stuff. We're going to have shiny things up here. We're going to have, we're in the midst of a big renovation. Started this past year with our scoreboards and stuff. It's going to continue for the next couple of years. We're going to have all that stuff. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What matters is that the players believe they're getting better and they're being pushed and challenged fairly, because they're the ones that recruit. We're not the ones that recruit. I know you get the reputation of being a good recruiter or whatever as an assistant, and that for me leads to other opportunities and whatever. But really, the most important part is that are we making our players better? And so for us, especially up here, we have to do that because we're not in Boston or in Minneapolis or Detroit or some big city where people are coming in and out of. So we don't have people just floating through Maine and visiting on their, randomly and seeing a game. So they have to, hey, what's going on up there at the University of Maine? Like their team's getting better, their players are getting better. The atmosphere, obviously, you can see, when you see the videos, it's second to none as far as an atmosphere on game day. That's our best recruiting. That's going to be our best recruiting. And then everyone knows everybody in the hockey world, and they're going to talk to one of our players that maybe they played with or whatever. What's it like up there? And hopefully that's what's going to sell the University of Maine. And, I think that's what we really have to focus on. And that, again, goes back to having good people in the locker room and a staff that really can develop our players. And I think that's, so far, that's been a strength of ours.
Kind of a general question, thinking back to your playing days about 20 years ago and the players that you're seeing now, what are some of the differences? What are some of the similarities, whether it's skill or attitude or whatever around the game?
I think it's just that the information is just so, and it's not just in hockey, it's in everything. Information is so readily available. I mean, as soon as our game is over, our guys can go back to their dorm and basically watch all their shifts from that game. Like when we were 20 years ago or before we were playing, like the coaches had to get the VHS, double stack things. And that would take hours and hours and hours to get that kind of content to the players. And so everything they do, every time they touch the puck is, we're going to see, they're going to see. And, how do you, the days, you can't hide in anything you do anymore as a player or just in anything in life, really. I mean, everything's on video or social media or whatever. So it's, it's really, everything's under a microscope so much more than it was, 20 years ago. And I think there's a lot of good about that as far as developing players and, but it's a fine line, like how much information is too much information. And, you have to let them, figure some of the stuff out on their own. And so you're always trying to figure out like how much video is good, how much time on the ice, how much skill development, but it really allows you to, you can pick apart anybody's game so easily now because, so, if you do that, it's like, okay, well, we need to work on this, you need to work on this specific skill. Let's get a plan for you to work on this specific skill because you don't do that stuff in practice. You do that stuff in extra ice, skills ice, that kind of, in practice, a lot of times you're working on, whatever it is, forecheck, power play, penalty kill, so you're not getting individual skill per se in practice. So you have to find ways to get better outside of practice, which is, again, Jason Forche does that with our team here now. And, he's sending guys, hey, you need to learn how to shoot in stride. You need to learn how to, your edges, your edge work, your skating has to get better in this area, whatever it is. And they love that. The players love that, which is so much different than it was when we played. It was just like, go out, work hard. Here's the good players. Here's the guys like me that hopefully you get in the lineup and you can go and hit some guys. And that was it. Now it's like everybody wants to be everything. And how do you manage that?
Ben, you're now at the break here after almost the halfway point in the season, I guess, when you look at it. We've talked about a lot of the good things. Where are some of the places you still maybe feel you need to get better as a team?
The last 3 games specifically, it wasn't pretty for us. I mean, we found a way to win. I thought it started kind of with the UConn game a couple weekends ago. They played really well against us. The score was near indicative of what happened in the game. And then we were just kind of, treading water against Union and Bentley this past weekend. So I think some of the detail in our game has dropped a little bit in the last couple weeks. And I think part of that is we haven't had much practice time. It's almost been like pro hockey. I think we played 4 games in 8 or 9 days, and 2 of those games were on the road, and during finals week. So it was just kind of like trying to hang on a little bit and, watching the games back. We were not very detailed. We found a way to score enough goals to win, but we have to, especially with the young team. And, for the most part, a lot of our guys are freshmen and sophomores that are playing big roles for us. And, we have to get back to just the little things away from the puck and get better at. Especially it gets tighter as the year goes on, and second half is always tighter than the first half. Every game there's not going to be a lot of ice out there for us just to go up and down and get 2-on-1s and 3-on-2s. So we have to be able to win the tight checking, grinding type games. And I don't think we were great at that the last few games.
One last one before we let you go. When you come back, you'll head to the Ledger Bank Classic, one of the shortest bus rides you can make in the course of a year from Orono, heading to Dartmouth College. Do you like those in-season tournaments? I've heard some coaches say that they prepare you for the postseason, but some coaches also say sometimes they feel like a waste. How do you feel about them?
We had one. We had our own at RPI back in the day. It was the holiday tournament. Sometimes it was at Thanksgiving, sometimes at Christmas. So it was always kind of fun. It was different. You had 3 teams there, and a lot of times there were people that on those other teams that were, you knew players and people, players you played with on different teams growing up or whatever. So that was kind of neat. You don't really know what you're getting, especially the first week after the break. Our guys are coming back for, a little bit early this year. So to hopefully last year after the break, we were playing pretty well going into the break, and after it looked like we'd never played hockey before when we got back. I think our break was too long. So, yeah, I mean, they're games and they're important games. We play RIT is a really good team, the first game, and then we'll see the second game, depending on what happens. But those games are really important for, at the end of the year. And so we can't afford to have an off night or two. And So, we just view them as another game, and it's another game against a really good team. And how do we handle it after being off for 10, 11 days or whatever it is when the guys go home? And that's a challenge, because that's, college hockey, I think, is the only level, that I don't know if there's other junior leagues or pro leagues where you get that kind of break where, teams are, guys are going home and they're really on their own for, sometimes a week or two. And it's like, okay, that's fine for some people, and some guys it's finding ice and that kind of stuff is a challenge. So that's, you're always just kind of, crossing your fingers a little bit.
Well, you are in the middle of a short break, about 20 days here for the Black Bears, but the holidays do come in there. So we wish you the happiest of holidays, and to you, your family, everybody up in good old Orono, Maine, and keep up the good work. We enjoy watching the team from afar.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Thanks, Ed. Happy holidays to you guys as well.
That's Maine Black Bears head coach Ben Barr. Jim, Ben started out right away talking about how this year's team has been self-driven. And when he got to Maine, he was really talking a lot about having to get players to start working hard. He has built a culture there, and he seems to be on the same timeline that UMass was when he was brought in as an assistant coach there. Their third season is when they really started to catch some fire, and that's what's happening right now in Maine.
Yeah, this is a coach in Ben Barr who, as an assistant, had success everywhere he went. And he went to a number of different programs, but capping that with obviously the national championship at UMass right before he ended up in Orono. He knew what he wanted to do with this program, but you can know as a coach exactly how you want to handle the situation, but you still need the buy-in, and he got the buy-in pretty quickly from players. And there were some good moments in season one, I think, for him, and that probably is something that can become a little bit contagious within a locker room. And then season two, things really started to improve. One of the better seasons Maine had. Of course, one of their best seasons in recent years was the one that was canceled out by COVID. The playoffs, the postseason, they never got a chance to play that postseason with Red Gendron, the late Red Gendron, as their coach. But now here they are, and they're in a situation where they've tasted some good things, and now I think the believability is there, and it seems certainly that the self-motivation, which, boy, is that an important thing. Any coach, you can't bottle that up and sell it. Coaches don't always succeed in bringing that to a locker room. It's hard to get there. Sometimes, locker rooms need the coach to lead them through motivation. And I'd much rather, as a head coach, be one that has a team that just motivates itself, and then I'm there for support, than a head coach that always has to get there and give that rah-rah speech to get them going. Because if you're in that situation, eventually that speech gets tuned out itself, and you don't end up with that same success as a self-motivated team. So that was the first thing he said to us, and I thought that was a really important part of what he pointed to as being a success for this year's team.
That vacancy after the passing of Red Gendron was unexpected back in May of 2021. I think back 30 years, Tim Whitehead taking over a program from Sean Walsh in a situation where a legend had passed away. And Whitehead never, I think, got treated fairly and respected for what he did accomplish with Maine. A little bit different situation with Ben Barr. People still look back 30 years ago as if that was the last time Maine was any good. So in one sense, he is seen as somebody coming in to restore some former glory, maybe a little difference there. But to have the fans come back and fill Alfond Arena and sell out in Portland right before the break really kind of gives you a sense that the fans in Maine sense that something special is happening there.
There's no doubt. And they are a culture of fans that they were waiting for this. I've been fortunate to probably be up to Maine in my 32 years in this business. I've probably been up there at least 10, 12, maybe even more times. And the frustration when they weren't good, I called a few games for UVM radio up there a number of years ago. And I remember, Maine gave up 3 goals one night in the early goings of a game. And the 8 fans right in front of us in the stands upped and left. They were just disgusted by the team and they left. That shows a level of frustration and the level of high expectation that is out there. And I agree with what you said about Tim Whitehead never getting that fair of a shake, because don't forget he was less than a minute away from his own national championship with this team. They want glory up there, and you asked the question about how difficult it can be to recruit up there, and I liked what Ben Barr said. You can have a lot of pretty shiny things and all of that stuff, but it's the word of mouth between the players generation after generation that tell other players to go there. And that's what he needs to recruit. And it seems like he's getting that. To have 2 of the best freshmen in the country, both choose your program the same season, highly touted, and now immediately have success in that program. That's something that is very sellable to the next class and the next class after that. That's the type of kind of a train of recruits that you want, because they come there for the right reason. They're not worried about we're in Orono and we're 3 hours away from any major city. They're worried more about, I want to win, and this is the place I can win.
Well, we'll be watching Maine with a lot of interest. They've been fun to watch so far this season. One of the great stories in college hockey in 23 and 24. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time on USCHO Spotlight.